All right, everybody at some point has been a struggling reader. You have some kind of document or text in front of you, and you're just not understanding what the point of it is. Maybe the subject matter is boring. Maybe there's a lot of vocabulary that you just don't understand. Maybe you're tired. And this is not a fifth grade thing. This is not a middle school thing. This is just a life thing. Sometimes this happens. And when that happens, we become strugglers. We're struggling to read, to really understand what we've read. And so I want you to go to this particular chart that we have, strategies for struggling readers. And we're going to learn today about how to go through a text that we struggle with. So the first thing you're to do is map the text. All right. So I chose a text that we teach in fifth grade as part of a unit called The Making of a Scientist. I don't know when you're viewing this video, and it is a difficult lesson because it is a text about science and changes in science that was not written for fifth graders, that was not written for middle school students. And so it's something that students often struggle with. There's a lot of scientific terms, there's a lot of history in there that they're not used to. And so it is a text that they struggle with. I have no teachers who say, I don't teach that lesson because it's so difficult. I always teach this lesson because I know it's difficult. It's something that we have to deal with in life. And so you need to know how to deal with a text that maybe you're really going to struggle with. And everybody struggles with this. I'm a teacher. I know the text, and even I struggle with it. I have to use the strategies I teach my students with them so that I understand it. So I'm going to go back to the text now. It's called Modern Science, What's Changing? All right, the first thing you're supposed to do is map the text. That means circling the headings, titles, and subheadings. Okay, I don't have a tool that allows me to circle, so I'm going to highlight. Some of my students will do that. They'll highlight. So I'm doing this on the computer. Normally I would do this with the Ladybug because I like to actually write on a paper, but I'm going to try to use the computer. All right, we have a subheading here, publication and peer review, highlighting that. And specialization and collaboration, we're highlighting that. Okay, and I go up. All right, let's go back to our chart. So why did we do that? Well, the reason we did that is it says here, titles and headings will help you know the main idea of what you are reading. Okay, I often emphasize looking at the subheading and seeing what it says. I don't know why, but a lot of my students have told me that they skip the titles and headings and they just look at the paragraphs. And I say, don't do that, because when you look at a title or a subheading, read what it says. If you read underneath that and you see in those paragraphs, you don't see anything that relates to the title or the subheading, then you're probably missing something. And it doesn't mean, oh, you failed or you messed up. It just means you need to start over. You're not seeing whatever it is the author wants you to see. You're not seeing. If you don't see a connection between a title and the text underneath it, or a subheading and the text underneath it, then you're missing the main idea. And it's important to know, oh, I'm missing the main idea, so let me start over and look again. That lets you know that you're not on track with your reading. And that's just a normal thing. We all get distracted when we're reading. We all read something and say, oh, I'm done. And we'll say, well, what was it about? And you're like, I don't really know. The subheadings are there for a reason. They're there to help you keep track of what you're doing. Okay, so let's go back. We've highlighted the titles and headings, and we also want to number our paragraphs. So let's go to our text. That's paragraph 1. This is, I believe, paragraph 2. Now we're in a new section. It's paragraph 3, paragraph 4, and paragraph 5. All right, so we've mapped the text, and now we're ready to read. It says now, our next section, paraphrase, put into your own words the paragraphs. Okay, so we're going to go back and we're going to read a paragraph, and I'm not even going to read the first paragraph. I'm going to read a paragraph in the middle of that article, and we're going to look at it. Besides paraphrasing, you're going to come across words that you don't know how to say out loud. You're going to come across words you haven't seen before. This is a scientific article, so there's a lot of what we call academic vocabulary. That means words that you're only going to encounter in the field of science. And you may not necessarily understand what every word is. If you come across a word you don't know, don't just stop. Skip over it and see if you can continue reading and figure out the gist, the basic idea of what you're reading. If you can't, then we know we have a problem. If you find that you read a sentence and you can't understand what that sentence is about, then we know we have an issue. But sometimes when students are reading, they come across a word they don't know and they just freeze up. Keep going. Maybe you'll figure out the meaning of that word later on. One thing I suggest students do is if they come across a word they don't know, circle it, underline it, highlight it, and then later on go back and try to figure out the meaning of that word. Go look it up in the dictionary, see if you can find context clues that will help you out. Maybe there's another part of that article that will give a definition of that word. And even if you don't know how to say that word, you can still figure out its meaning. But don't just stop and say, "Oh, well, I don't. I've come across a word I don't know. I'm done." Continue reading. So we're going to now look at a paragraph that's just in the middle of this article. We're going to read it and then we're going to put it into our own words so that we can show we understand it. Okay, so let's go. Let's do paragraph. Let's do paragraph 4. So I'm going to read this paragraph here. Technological advances have also added an additional step to the review that many scientific articles undergo: image analysis. In 2004, Woo-Suk Hwang announced to the scientific community and the rest of the world that he had reached a milestone of biology. Okay, I'm going to maybe I don't know what that word means. I'm going to underline that. A milestone of biology. And I don't necessarily know. When I was in 5th grade, I didn't know what biology was, but I knew it was some form of science. Cloning a human embryonic stem cell. I guarantee you, I did not know embryonic. Actually, let's just be honest. I didn't know stem cell. I didn't know any of these terms. I knew it had to do with science. I did know what cloning meant, to make a replica of. Over the next 2 years, partly through the close scrutiny of images in his published work that appeared to be duplicated and manipulated, this so-called breakthrough was revealed to be a fraud. As cases like Hwang's have come to light, many journals have begun to more carefully scrutinize the images in scientific papers, often using computer programs to digitally analyze pictures and hunt for manipulation. Okay, I just read that paragraph, and now what I want to do is I want to paraphrase. I want to write in the margins in my own words what it's saying. It is a complex text. That's what we teach as English teachers in the state of Louisiana. Our task is to teach you complex text. Complex means it's not simple. Think of complex and complicated. It's not a simple thing. When you read it, you have to go back to the text. We do not teach you anything where the idea is, okay, you read through and you're done. If we tell you to read on your own, the idea is that maybe you're able to understand on your own. But if we're going over it with you, that means it's a complex text and you're going to have to go back and look at it again. And I just read that paragraph, and every time I do this lesson with my students, I have to read it again because I don't know what it says. I don't know what they're talking about. It's a complicated text. It's very full of academic vocabulary. It's about a very specific issue of science. So I'm going to read that again, and I'm going to try to write out to the side what that paragraph is about in my own words. So let's go back. Okay. I'm going to add a comment here. This is my version of writing in the margins. Okay. All right. Technological advances have added an additional step to the review that many scientific articles undergo: image analysis. All right. Okay, so that first sentence, technological advances, I know that means better technology. Better technology has been made. I don't like that language. Better technology is becoming another step in the process of review. So when scientists they have to have their work checked. So there's been advances in technology to help with that. In 2004, Woo-Suk Hwang announced to the scientific community and the rest of the world that he reached a milestone of biology, cloning a human embryonic stem cell. Over the next 2 years, partly through the close scrutiny of images in his published work that appeared to be duplicated and manipulated. I know manipulate means it's not particularly real. It's somehow been made to look a certain way. This so-called breakthrough was revealed to be a fraud. That's something that's not true. As cases like Hwang's have come to light, many journals have begun to more carefully scrutinize the images in scientific papers, often using computer programs to digitally analyze pictures and hunt for manipulation. Okay, that's a little paragraph in that article with multiple topics that are covered, and it's still a difficult one. But what I understand from that is that we've got better technology. Okay, what's that better technology been used for? That technology has been used to make sure that people are being honest. They're not committing fraud. Fraud is when you lie or you have something that's not true. And so that technology, the better technology we have, is able to make sure that that when people talk about something good that's happened in science, a breakthrough, only things that are true are going to be accepted. Okay, so I go back. So we have better technology is becoming another step in the process of review. This technology is helping make sure that scientific claims are true. Now, I didn't put the example of that man who pretended that he cloned something and didn't. I didn't put that in my little paraphrase because that was an example. The main idea of that article, of that paragraph, not of the article, just of that paragraph, has to do with the fact that technology is helping make sure that scientists are not doing things or saying things that are incorrect, but that we know when they say that they have a breakthrough, that they're actually being truthful. And that's just looking at that article. I had to read it 2 times and I put it in my own words. And that helps me understand what that article is about. But it still was a difficult process. And sometimes you're going to do that. But if you can't put something in your own words, if you can't paraphrase, what that means is you need to try to read it one more time. You need one more go. And if you've read something multiple times and you just really don't understand it, that's when it's time to ask for help from someone else, like a teacher. But going back to the text, if you read something, you say, okay, I don't understand it. I always tell my students when they say, well, I don't understand, I say, did you map the text? Did you do the things I've asked you to do? Have you reread it? Have you tried to put it in your own words? Because it's not something that's meant to be understood the first time. That's what a complex text is. It's something that you have to go back through and you have to read over and over again to understand the meaning of. And we know that's difficult as teachers. That's what we're doing with you. We're trying to show you that you guys can do that, but it requires that effort. If this was just something simple you could read through and not have to mark up and you could understand it, then it wouldn't be a complex text. But that's what we do as struggling readers. We do this process so that way we're able to squeeze out as much understanding as possible. And the more you do that, the easier it will get. The less you will struggle with this text, and you'll be able to move on to more complex text on your own eventually. All right, so let's go back to our chart about what we do. We paraphrased and we put it in our own words. We went past words we didn't know. We didn't just stop because we encountered something we didn't know, and we tried to find understanding. So we've done that. Looks pretty good. Okay, so what we did today is we looked at what do we do when we're struggling. We looked at the titles and subheadings. We numbered our paragraphs. We read the paragraphs. We tried to put it in our own words. We had to go back and read it again. That's what we do with complex text. That is something that we do anytime in life we come across something we don't understand the first time. We go back to the text. Not understanding it the first time is not a failure. It doesn't mean that we've done something wrong. It means that we're doing something right. We are pushing ourselves to be better readers and people who understand. And the more we push ourselves, the more eventually we're going to understand, and we're going to be wonderful, wonderful, discerning readers in society. Okay, hope you have a good day.